Good morning, boys and girls. Well, remember yesterday a horrible thing happened. Silver Sides and Gray Bar crashed into the club. So, chapter 9 is entitled, What Happened at the Cheese Squeeze Club? The mice stared in horror at Silverside's face. The next movement, when the opponent's wall fell in and Graybar's eyes and whiskers appeared, chaos erupted. The club was filled with squeaking, screaming, running, hopping, leaping mice, rushing as one toward the single available exit. But the opening was far too narrow to accommodate the crush. Mice were pushed, shoved, and trampled. Only a few managed to escape. When the remaining mice tried to find another way out, they were confronted by the two cats calling out, "Cats rule, mice out. Rodents retreat. Felines first." At first, Ragweed was too bewildered to do anything but gape at the wild confusion before him. But when Graybar leaped into the middle of the milling mice and began pouncing and biting, a terrified Ragweed shrank back into a corner. From there he looked toward the platform where the B-flat tires had been playing. Dipstick was leaping straight up and down, squeaking raucous insults at the cats. Lugnut crouched behind his bass guitar as if it were a shield against possible attack. As for Clutch, she was holding her guitar by its neck, clearly willing to use it as a weapon. The look upon her face was nothing less than ferocious. 2 cats, 45 mice. Despite their numbers, the mice, overwhelmed by both the suddenness and ruthlessness of the cats' attack, put up very little resistance. Instead, they tried desperately to get away. The 2 cats, grinning and howling with glee, were catching and tossing mice at will. One blow of a cat's paw and another poor mouse was either laid low or tossed across the room like a beanbag. Not all mice were so passive. When Clutch saw Silverside step on a young mouse tail and gradually draw her victim in, as if reeling in a fish, she leaped from the performance platform and, bent on rescue, dashed forward. Coming close to the cat, she hauled back her guitar and swung it with all her might, smacking Silverside's right on her nose. There was a loud plunk. The guitar strings snapped. The guitar shattered. Taken by surprise, Silverside removed her paw from her victim's tail and touched her nose to see if anything had broken. The freed mouse leaped away and was lost in the crowd. Surprised as well as smarting, the white cat searched for her attacker. She did not have to look far. An irate Clutch stood before her, holding the fragmented instrument in her paws. "Hey you, thick dude, why don't you trash someone your own size?" she screamed, with no apparent thought for her own safety. "Like, we've got just as much right to be here as you do. Know what I'm saying?" "No, I don't know what you're saying, you vulgar-mouthed vermin," Silversides retorted. Shooting out a paw, she smacked Clutch broadside, hurling the green-headed mouse back up against a wall. Clutch hit hard, slid to the floor, and laid motionless, eyes closed. Only her earring was moving, swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Ragweed, who had seen it all, gasped. He was not sure Clutch had been killed. Silverside seemed to think otherwise. Gathering herself up, she prepared to leap upon the mouse and deliver a finishing blow. Clutch shook her head groggily and opened her eyes. She made an effort to rise, but was apparently incapable of getting up. Silversides was grinning at her, ready to spring. One moment, Ragweed was relieved to see that Clutch was alive. The next moment, he saw what was about to happen and was appalled. Barely thinking, he snatched up Clutch's skateboard and ran to his new friend's side. Silverside's mouth opened so wide her gullet was fully exposed, took a flying leap at Clutch. Ragweed lifted the skateboard over his head to protect himself and his friend. Down came Silversides, mouth wide. Feeling her hot breath on his ears, Ragweed shoved the skateboard into the cat's mouth. The cat tried to close her jaws, but could not. Her mouth was wedged open by the skateboard. Taken by surprise, the cat uttered a throaty shriek and rolled over on her back. Kicking desperately, she tried to get the board out of her mouth. It stayed stuck. Across the room, Graybar looked around and saw Silversides writhing about on the floor. Momentarily forgetting the bra, he limped over to his companion. "Hey, babe, what's the matter?" he asked her. "What are you saying?" "I'm off, was all Silverside could manage. Not understanding what had happened, Graybar just laughed. Alf, Silverside screeched. Finally, Graybar understood. He knelt and tried to pry the skateboard from his friend's mouth. Seeing that the cats were occupied, Ragweed snatched one of Clutch's paws and gave a yank. "Come on," he cried. "Run for it." Clutch staggered to her feet. Led by Ragweed, the two pushed their way through the mob of mice who were trying frantically to get out of the room. Fortunately, the walls smashed by the cats provided new avenues for escapes. Mice were streaming away to safety. Dragging the dazed Clutch after him, Ragweed plunged through one of the holes in the walls. Wow, that was an exciting chapter. I'm glad most of our friends got away. Chapter 10. This is called Blinker Continued. In another part of Amperville, the full moon was high, the night air soft, the fragrance of spring rich and varied. Blinker's pink nose, framed by his fine fair whiskers, trembled, and his pink eyes kept blinking as he tried to take in a world so very much bigger than the room he knew. "Oh my," he prattled in a daze of happy and wonderment. "So many sounds, so many smells, so much to see." Like an unsure compass needle, he turned round and around on shaky legs until he grew dizzy. Stopping and starting, he made his way across the lawn in front of his house. The grass tickled his feet so he had to pause more than once because of uncontrollable giggling. Here and there he plunged his nose into the ground and inhaled the sweet and musky smell, only to get a snoot full of dirt and dust, which caused him to sneeze repeatedly. "It's all so amazing," he wheezed. "So delightful, full." In a moment of abandon, he rolled over in the grass and kicked his pink feet in the air, which gave him the sensation that he was walking on the moon. Another kick righted him, and he began to run around wildly. When he reached the sidewalk in front of his house, He put his paw on the concrete. Goodness, this is hard, he murmured, almost as if he was learning a new language, yet very cool. Delightful, so it is, it really is. He continued along the sidewalk, poking his nose this way and that. Every few inches he reared up on his hind legs and gazed about. "Oh," he cried in rapture, "my shadow by moonlight! How velvety, how mysterious!" When Blinker reached the curb, he gazed down into the gutter where puddles had gathered. "Why, I believe that's water, but not in a bottle or a glass. It's just free." He studied the water so intently, he leaned over too far and tumbled head over heels, landing with a splat in the middle of a puddle. Thoroughly soaked, Blinker sat up, grimaced, looked around, then began to laugh uncontrollably. "Ridiculous! I mean, I am so helpless, like an infant. That's what I am, a perfect baby. I might as well be blind and naked. It's all so silly. But wonder." He could not finish his sentence. He was laughing too hard, dripping wet. He eased himself out of the water and began to move across the road. Unexpectedly, there was an explosion of light so bright he was blinded. Then Blinker heard a roar louder than anything he had ever heard before in his life. Unable to see, to move, much less to think, he went numb with terror. The next moment, the machine that made the roar hurtled over him, missing him with just inches to spare, creating a wind that left him frightened and coughing. What was that? Blinker asked himself as he looked in the direction the thing had gone. All he saw were receding red lights. "A car," he said to himself in a shaky voice. "I forgot about cars." He pressed both front paws over his wildly beating heart. "I could get killed." In haste, Blinker retreated to the gutter and attempted to climb the curb, which proved too high and smooth to manage. Given no choice, Blinker scampered the length of the gutter. When he reached the end of the block, he halted. He knew he wanted to go home. An inner voice scolded him for being weak, while urging him to be bold, to continue on, to explore the world. In the end, Blinker compromised between urges. He would go on and see as much as he could by night, but as soon as daylight came, he would return to the house and the safety of his room. Having calmed himself with this self-imposed limit, Blinker ventured upon the street again. This time he carefully checked both ways for any sign of danger before proceeding. Only when he was certain that there was none did he dart across the street and into a park. He took time to feel the rough bark of the massive trees. When he came upon a flower, a lily of the valley, he almost swooned with delight at its strong fragrance and delicate white bells. Blinker went on, drawn by one astonishing discovery after another. First it was a damp, wiggling worm, then a pine cone. A shiny pebble seemed to have captured the light of the moon on its smooth surface. There were signs of humans, too. Ash cans, piles of newspapers, benches. It was as if each thing he came upon was the rarest of marbles, and he the first to find it. "Truly remarkable," he kept whispering. "Truly, truly, truly." Only after he had gone on for a long time did Blinker happen to look up. The darkness was fading. In its place was soft gray light. Wondering, he stared at it. Goodness, he sighed. Even the sky changes. Then he remembered his promise to himself. It was time to return home. Regretfully, but with some relief, Blinker turned about, only to realize that he had neglected to keep track of his route. He had no idea where he was, much less how to get back home. Eyes squinting, tail twitching, he looked around. What had seemed very beautiful moments before had become a bewildering maze. He darted off in one direction, certain he had come from that way. The next moment he felt sure it was not from that way, but from this. Trembling with fear, he came to a stop. He was lost. Get a grip on yourself, Blinker, he murmured, and made himself look around in the growing morning light. He was on a sidewalk. The buildings, at least compared with houses in his own neighborhood, were not as brightly painted. Some windows were broken. Doors were lopsided. Many more cars went by in the night, terrifying in their size, noise, and smell. As Blinker pondered his difficulty, he heard a strange sound. He had not the least idea what this long, high-pitched, drawn-out whistle might be. Still, it was something. I must get back home, he told himself, and crept along, halting every few feet to rise up on his hind legs and look and sniff, hoping that every corner he turned would be revealing something familiar. None did, and in his confusion, the whistle drew him like a beacon of light. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read a third chapter today because our chapters were a little shorter. Chapter 11, Windshield and Foglight. Safety beyond the ruins of the Cheese Squeeze Club, Ragweed halted. Are you all right? He asked Clutch. Clutch shook her head clear, then looked back toward the club. Oh, Mouse, why do those cats hate us so much? She cried. Tears ran down her cheeks. Like, what did we ever do to them? Know what I'm saying? They're so big and powerful, and what can we do? Like Zippo. Ragweed did not know what to say. Taking a deep breath, Clutch wiped away tears. Hey, dude, you were something else. You saved my life. I mean, you were totally awesome. You saved mine before, Ragweed said, so we're even. Except I don't think we should stand here talking. We need to find a safer place. You sure you're okay? Hey, I'm cool, Clutch said, but suddenly she turned to look again at what had been the club. Hey, what about Dipstick and Lugnut? Have you seen them? I'm afraid not. Clutch swallowed hard. What about my guitar? She asked. You smashed it on Silverside's nose. Oh, yeah, right. And my deck in Silverside's mouth. Clutch put her paws over her eyes. Total yard sale, she said. Biffed. Ragweed touched Clutch's shoulder gently. Aw, dude, he said tentatively. You did the best you could. Yeah, like maybe, Clutch replied. Suddenly she grinned. Hey, what was that? Some kind of killer music or what? Right on the cat's nose leather. Just as quickly she began grim again. Do you think my buds got, like, planted deep? I don't know. Oh, Mouse, the Cheese Squeeze Club was one cool place. Know what I'm saying? Maybe I should go back and check on my buds. Clutch, Ragweed urged. Like, don't you think we'd be safer somewhere else? Safe? Yeah, right. We had better haul. Follow me. As the two mice scurried along the sidewalk, Ragweed noticed that they were not going back the way had they come. Aren't we going the wrong way, he asked. Not really, like it might not be safe to go to my pad right away. Can't tell. Maybe Silversides knows where it's at. That's where she chased you. I mean, to live around here, dude, you have to be street savvy. Street savvy? Yeah, keep your mind to the bind and your feet to the beat. Know what I'm saying? I think so. Where are we going? To my old mouse's place. They'll let us hang out till this blows over. It's not far. After a 2-block run, Clutch darted into an alleyway and squirmed under a metal wall whose lower edge was old rubber. On the other side of the wall stood a very long and, to Ragweed's eyes, immense metal box with a long row of dirty windows. The box was perched on flat tires and painted yellow, though the paint was peeling badly. On one side of the brick box was written, Amperville School District. What is that? Ragweed said. Old school bus, dude, where my parents hang out their tails. Ragweed, who had no idea what a school bus was, decided it was not the moment to ask more questions. Instead, he followed Clutch up into the bus itself. At the top of the ramp, Clutch paused. My folks are way cool, Mouse. Just be yourself. You'll do fine. Inside the bus, the walls were covered with pictures painted on bits of paper with chewed edges. Oh my, Ragweed murmured. Well, like my old mouse is an artist, Clutch said with pride. Know what I'm saying? She stopped so Ragweed could admire the work. At first, Ragweed thought it was the dimness of the bus that made it difficult to see the pictures clearly. Then he realized it was not the light, but the art that was obscure. The pictures consisted mainly of swirls of colors and curious shapes. He could not begin to tell what they represented, if anything. Here's a picture of the school bus in the alley where the Clutch's parents lived. The old mouse, his name is Windshield, but we call him Wendy. He's really into cheese, Clutch explained. That's what he paints. He paints cheese? Ragweed asked, bewildered. Hey, dude, not the cheese itself, like he does portraits of cheese. Know what I'm saying? See here, that's his famous yellow cheese descending a stairway. This one is from his blue cheese period. Over there is American cheese. That blank picture isn't really blank. It's a hole from some Swiss cheese. I mean, killer amazing. It takes like one wicked mind to think of nothing, don't you think? I bet you can never guess how Wendy does it. No, I don't think I could, Ragweed admitted. Uses his tail. Like he may be my old mouse, Clutch said with pride, but the guy's an awesome genius. Fog light? Clutch said. Now, she's a poet. She's writing a mouse epic. Calls it Cheese of Grass. Going to be killer sweet. Word wipe out time. Been working on it for weeks. Should be done any day now. But hey, dude, let me introduce you to them. They passed down the center of the bus between rows of broken seats. Pictures hung everywhere. Ragweed saw at a glance were Ch's paintings and presumably had been painted by Clutch's father. But there were other paintings, portraits of mice, landscapes, visions of human nests, streets. There were also twisted objects of all kinds. Ragweed was reminded of the pile of junk in which he had hidden by the railroad. My folks have a lot of artist friends, Clutch whispered by way of explanation. They can't sell what they make, so they swap stuff. Hey, Wendy, Foggy, what's up? Clutch called. At the front of the old bus were two mice. The large one, Ragweed guessed he was Clutch's father. The one called Windshield was quite portly. His scruffy fur was gray-brown like his daughter's, but so dabbled with color it looked like a spotted creature. All around him was an array of bottle caps, each filled with paint of a different color. The tip of his tail, he was in the middle of painting a picture, was quite green. Ragweed noticed it was the same color as the top of Clutch's head. The other mouse, who was small and wiry, was bending intently over the work she was composing on paper, chewing a writing stick. Though Clutch called a greeting, she seemed not to have heard. Not so with Clutch's father. He looked around. Clutch, she mumbled in a low voice as Ragweed had never heard. What a magnificent surprise! He bounded forward and gave his daughter an enthusiastic nuzzle, which she returned with equal fervor. Hey, Wendy, Clutch said, this is my new bud. Ragweed, he just blew into town, and he already saved my life. Saved your life? The fat mouse cried, eyes sparkling with interest. Sir, he explained, I should like to shake your paw. He did with so much great vigor and enthusiasm. It is clear, young man, you subscribe to the same philosophy as I do. The world of big gestures, action, commitment. He clung to Ragweed's paw, continuing to shake it. I'm delighted to meet you. No correction. Thrilled to meet you. Welcome to the family, he went on, all the while pumping Ragweed's paw. Oh, well, thank you, said Ragweed mildly. Did you hear, Foggy? Windshield cried, turning towards his wife. This delightful young mouse saved our daughter's life. That's nice, Clutch's mother said. Be finished in 2 secs. Though she seemed to mean it, she was too intent upon her work to break off. Not so, Windshield. Come over here, you two. Great to see you. Clutch, love your hair. You know, he said suddenly, halting and rising up on his hind legs as if giving a sermon. When a stranger saves the life of another stranger, it seems to me that we have reached a major turning point. It means mice are beginning to take care of mice. It's a trend, he cried, with great sweeping motions of one paw. What has happened will affect other mice. They will affect yet others. The movement will spread, and the whole world of mice will change. It's a revolution. Wendy, Clutch said, can we get something to eat? Of course, Windshield said good-naturedly. Foggy, he called to his wife, care to join us? Just 2 secs. Foglight mumbled again without looking up. My wife, Windshield explained to Ragweed with pride, is a wonderful rider. Do you know how you can tell a professional rider from an amateur? No. An amateur worries about the work before starting. A professional worries about the work when finished. Windshield led the 2 young mice under a seat where food was piled about in random fashion. Help yourself, my dear friends. Now then, Ragweed, the complete story. No detail is too small. How did you preserve my daughter's life? I desire to hear it all. It was at the Cheese Squeeze Club, Ragweed began. The Cheese Squeeze Club, Windshield interrupted. These places where young people congregate are important. When I was young, it was different. We were isolated. Today, a whole new feeling has emerged, a sense of belonging, and these clubs mark a turning point, a trend. The world is changing. Revolution is at hand. Wendy, Clutch interrupted. Do you want to know what happened? Certainly. Silversides and Graybar mopped up the club. Cruel, hateful creatures, Windshield cried, holding down the mice of this town, repressing us. But our time will come, he clenched a paw and held it high. We mice shall rise again. Tell me about it, Clutch said. Never give up heart, Windshield proclaimed. Remember, we're at a turning point. Notice that the whole new feeling has emerged, a new sense of belonging, a revolution. Hey, Pops, Clutch said with affection. Like you said that already. I have? The artist was truly surprised. At least. Oh, well, interruption is the proof of sincerity. Saying what you mean is important. It's a turning point. A whole new... Wendy, Clutch cried, cutting him off. Then Ragweed said, Mr. Windshield, sir, do you think anything can be done about the cats? Like, make them stop hurting you guys? Windshield seemed to deflate. Well, if you put it that way, no. But young fellow, the power of art will. He stopped mid-sentence. That reminds me, he said. He rushed out from under the seat, headed for the back of the bus, and resumed painting. Ragweed looked at Clutch. Like the power of art will what? He asked her. Beats me, Clutch said, laughing. That's the way the dude always talks. He's like constantly cruising, dreaming, except know what I'm saying? Most of his dreams come when he's awake. Clutch, Ragweed said. Really, isn't there like anything to be done about those cats? Clutch sighed. Hey, dude, I'll tell it like it is. These are us mice, okay? And then there are those cats. We don't deserve it, but they hate us. Generally speaking, we lose. Totally. Hey, it's what's going down. A constant struggle. And that's the way it's going to be. But, Ragweed murmured, that's an awful way to live. Hey, dude, you've been here what? 1 day? 2? Right? Me, I've spent my whole life looking over both my shoulders for cats. So chill. Know what I'm saying? Keep on living till we die. No other way. It'll come, and there's nothing we can do about it. But hey, baby, you live with regrets. You'll wind up regretting living. Okay, boys and girls, that's where we're going to stop for today. We are almost halfway through our book. We've been reading for a week now, so we'll rest for a while, and I'll see you on Monday.